It's another fascinating and delightful episode of Zag Talk. I'm joined by Sella. Hey, Sella.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. So, we got a lot to talk about today, but first, I want to introduce our guest for later on in the episode, Maria and Angelica, lead transport and mobility consultant for Factual, our sponsors for the episode. They've just launched a new UMX course on corporate commuting, which is actually more exciting than that sounds because there's a lot that it impacts in the real world out there. So, we're going to get to that in a second. But first, a lot of news to tear into. And I guess I'll start with a little news of my own, just tooting my own horn here. But Herbivore is coming back, everyone's favorite mobility and delivery conference, coming back April 16th and 17th, 2026. So, Sella, can we get you out stateside for that one, maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
twist her arm. I think we got to make it happen, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
April
no.
in California versus April in the UK could be a little bit nicer.
Yeah, for sure. Better weather at least.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. She's committed to come and meet her in person. But anyways, plenty of other bigger news, starting with the thing that's got basically the whole mobility world talking the last couple of weeks. Rivian's got another project called Also. That's the name of it. Also. And it's a $4,500 e-bike. The tech bros have reinvented the wheel again. And it's not just this really cool looking e-bike. It's also a pedal assist cargo e-quad that's they got to deal with Amazon. If everyone remembers, Rivian has Amazon vans, so now they've got Amazon e-quads. And I don't know. You've taken a look, so like, what do you think?
I think it's interesting that it seems that also kind of just dropped out and now they have these massive deals obviously with Amazon, as you say, with the Rivian backing. But $4,500 is a lot, and the
It's a lot.
affordability of e-bikes is a massive conversation. But will it sell because of the brand? Maybe.
Well, yeah, but it's. I feel like it's far enough from the Rivian brand that again, like the average bike person's gonna be like, well, what's an
Yeah.
Also?
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, there's some interesting technical advancements. Besides looking sleek, it's got what they're calling the Dream Ride, so it's a kind of middle hub, but it's almost like a hybrid car where the pedaling doesn't ever actually move the wheels themselves, charges a little internal battery contraption, and then as you need it, power flows to the drivetrain and back tire. But that could be part of why it costs so much. But I don't know. This
Yeah.
reminds me, every couple of years we see a beautiful looking, half the price of a car e-bike come out, and it gets the tech press really excited. And it's like, ooh, that looks nice. That's cool. Is this
Yeah.
going to get everyone onto bicycles? But
Yeah.
then it's always an uphill battle. I don't know. It's tough to get people to shell out that much money.
Yeah, it definitely feels like quite a luxury offering.
Yeah,
So we'll
yeah.
see how it does.
Best of luck. I want it to work, obviously. I want to see a world full of cool little e-bikes, but yeah, so let's hope they can do it. But that reminds me of another, let's say, premium price two-wheeler that's now going from the US to Europe. So Infinite Machine, that they make a very sleek looking, first they had a moped, that had another little kind of stripped down, more like a scooter style one. I test drove one last year. Beautiful machine. I mean,
Really?
it's. I mean, yeah. There's some scooters you get on them and you're like, oh, this is kind of like a janky little contraption. No, this felt like a Porsche of two wheelers. I'm
Wow.
flattering there, but it was an impressive experience. But also, again, it's an expensive vehicle, and now they're bringing it to Europe. So,
Yeah.
have you pre-ordered yours yet?
Not yet. Which model did you test?
I got to do both. I was lucky enough that they sort of gave me a sneak ride of the sneak peek of the new one before it came out. They're both very cool vehicles, but again, it's just
Yeah.
you're sort of bumping up into used car prices, and it's tricky to
Yeah,
get people
that's
to
true.
shell out that much money for something that's not a car. I don't know.
Yeah,
Curse
that's true.
curse our car brains.
Yeah, true.
But I mean, I do think, like in general, I would be more optimistic for their chances in Europe, just because it's much bigger moped culture. You got safer streets for it. In the U.S., outside of a couple neighborhoods, there's just so many places where you would not feel that comfortable on a two-wheeler. Whereas most major European cities, you could just be along all the Vespas and no one would think twice, right?
Yeah, true. But there is kind of a conversation going on with these like bigger e-bikes in Europe, and should they be in the bike lane?
Yeah.
I've seen some kind of divisive views on that. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how it does.
Yep. So wishing them all best of luck.
Yeah.
And speaking of Europe, we got plenty of European British news today. So kind of a shakeup in the mobility transportation landscape up there, no? So new bus law, better buses for the whole country. In Wales, making SUV drivers pay by weight, which I love. You got this big
Yeah.
car, it takes up so much space and it destroys the road. Why shouldn't you pay an extra pound when you're parking it?
Yeah.
And then the one that you're most excited about, what is it, Sella?
It's Eurostar. Eurostar's made
She's blushing. Got a real train fan here.
an international train fan, a 2 billion euro order for a fleet of up to 50 double-decker trains. So if all 50 go through, then that will increase Eurostar's fleet by a third. And it will be the first time that double-decker trains pass through the Channel Tunnel from the UK to France, which is very cool. I've never actually seen a double-decker Eurostar myself.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And yeah, I suppose it's just interesting. Commercial services won't start until 2031, but it's a big fleet expansion. Eventually,
And this lets them connect new destinations, right? More trains to
Yeah.
more places.
exactly. Eventually, they're going to add Geneva as a direct route. So it will be interesting to see, because definitely myself and in Europe, if Eurostar is the option, I'd pick that over a plane. Like, not, of course, it's better for the
Pricey.
environment. It's also, yeah, exactly. So if it's on a good offer, but it's so much easier. So, yeah, I wonder if it could really, if the costs come down, if it could really match aviation for those destinations in Europe.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I feel like part of the reason it's so expensive is that because the fleet has been sort of limited, they're selling out
Yeah.
most of the seats, so there's no reason to drop prices. So
Yeah,
more
exactly.
trains, more seats, more passengers, more smiles.
Yeah, 100%.
And so then speaking of more smiles, we got a less smiles story. So clean tech venture funding fell, or is falling this year, I suppose. Year's not over, so it's not down for the count yet. But so clean tech, broadly, clean mobility, batteries, any sort of alternative sustainability things. So for the year to date, down to about 20 billion in funding, venture funding, I should say. Last year, they did 34 billion through the end of 2024. Record in 21-22, everyone remembers those go-go years. They did about 55 billion in venture funding for clean tech. So bit of a fall. Obviously, some headwinds around the entire clean tech space, around tariffs and supply chains and the collapse of all the EV subsidies. So
Yeah.
understandable. It's been a rough year, but it still hurts to see it.
Yeah.
Hurts to see it.
Now, hopefully we'll have a comeback soon. But
I hope so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you and I will have nothing to talk about.
yeah. Yeah, no podcast.
But it's not all doom and gloom in startup land. Here's one that caught your eye.
Yeah, we have this new advertising tech platform called Admoya, and it was founded by the team of the e-bike operator Forest. And it's basically this network that provides really hyper-relevant ads to users on mobility platforms. Like, it's really targeted, uses really granular data, and it's just meant to help operators unlock revenue streams. It's meant to boost customer loyalty with really useful services. Like, if you're going to the gym, then it could be, for example, a good protein bar brand or or some smoothie cafe. So no, it's really interesting.
Is it based on like, here's something near you, or it's like we see that you're in place X, here's something that's not necessarily like another store, but just a thing that your patterns suggest you want?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it kind of detects your routines, and then it's things near you, like if you're traveling to the airport, it maybe will give you an offer on the airport lounge, things like that. So it's really interesting, and it's already being used by global players like Cabify is using it. Forest is obviously using it. So I'll be really interested to see how it does.
Ads rule the world around us, so that's interesting. And that reminds me of another piece I saw, that Apple is considering putting ads in Apple Maps. Obviously, no surprise. Anyone that's used Google Maps knows that's chock full of ads, so it's just a matter of time. But yeah, I mean, I suppose in a way, right, there's a chance that ads in this sort of environment are a little bit more targeted, a little more thoughtful. They're, contextual, which can be good, can also be creepy if they're just spying on your every move. But I think we seeded that right a few years back. So brave new world. Take your ads and love them.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see how they go.
So back stateside, a couple interesting pieces. So California Forever, the boldly named plan to build a new city about an hour's drive from San Francisco and Silicon Valley, has taken a sort of second bite at the apple. So they came up with their plans a year or two ago. People got excited, people got mad, as is to be expected with anything of this sort of scale. And so they went back to the drawing board. And yeah, they've sort of, the plan itself is familiar. So 400,000 residents, a little bit more fleshed out around the jobs. There's a foundry, there's a shipyard. The plan to get it done now involves being annexed by an existing city versus trying to form a new city from scratch. Yeah, I mean, one, just cool to see something this ambitious. And two, a lot of interesting mobility concepts. They've talked about woonerfs, right? Like the Dutch little small shared streets. They've also talked about super blocks as a way to sort of break up residential traffic from the cut-through traffic. So they're saying lots of the right things. Of course, devil's in the details, and then getting it actually built is another. But as a Californian that wants more California, I'm cautiously optimistic, I want to say. So see you there in 2050.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, exactly. I know they've talked about doing some new towns in the UK too, right?
Yeah, I just saw one, I think, that they want to call Forest City near Cambridge, or I'm not entirely sure on it, but I've definitely come across these new towns, and it'll be interesting to see, obviously, how mobility gets built into it from the start.
Well, best of luck. People need places to live, so.
Yeah, true.
Better and thoughtfully designed spots than just, sprawl way out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and then
another California story. So yeah, I think you guys are on this beat. So tell it to me as the California. What should I be expecting?
You should be expecting Archer's air taxis to be in operation for the 2026 LA World Cup and the 2027 Super Bowl. That's the plan at the moment.
And the Super Bowl. Okay.
Yeah, wow. And this is to gear up for the 2028 Olympics. So
all right.
You have lots of air taxis that are supposed to be coming your way for big events, but hopefully they pan out, because obviously we had Volocopter that was supposed to be serving last year's Paris Olympic Games, which didn't happen. So
didn't happen. Yes, the World Cup, that is, 9 months away or so, and then the Super Bowl after that, and then the Olympics, lots of sports, yay, rah. But yeah, I suppose it really, again, depends. What does it mean by it happens, right? If it's just one air taxi went from place A to place B to prove that it could be done, I wouldn't be shocked. But if it's, a region-wide network of shuttles, 2026 seems really optimistic. 2028, maybe.
Yeah, I think it might just be the odd one here and there for now.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time now, right? It's always just around the corner, air taxis, eVTOLs, advanced air mobility. So I feel like it's one of those things also, once it happens at any sort of scale, there's going to be such a different reaction from the community, obviously, depending on the sort of visual impact, the audio impact. So I will be curious how this one shakes out.
Would you ride one?
I mean, if the safety data was there, sure. I've been in a helicopter once or twice, and they're sort of scary, but I made it. So, it's like that, but electric. So, sure. But I can't imagine myself taking one as a regular commuter. Just one seems expensive and uses a lot of energy. Two, I work from my home, so I'm not really much of a commuter anyways.
Fair enough.
So if they want to take me from bedroom 1 to bedroom 2, happy to take them up on that.
That seems reasonable.
So this one caught my eye. I love delivery and e-bikes and everything like that, but it's London-based. So Velo launching a store-based delivery hub. So basically working with existing retailers to turn their storefronts into hubs for last mile delivery. So you take the packages there, and then they sort of come in and out and do the final, 1,000 feet to the customer. You know anything more about this one? It's a Zad story.
The startup's really newly launched. I think it just launched in September, so it's a new organization, but I think the purpose is to kind of cut out large distribution warehouses, just make it simpler, tap in directly to retailers' e-commerce systems, and then convert the shops into like mini fulfillment centers. And then you have couriers taking the deliveries directly to the customers' addresses within hours. It's meant to be quicker and obviously cutting out a lot of distance traveled.
Yeah.
So,
I like it. It reminds me, we've seen things that are related. There's obviously lots of businesses are sort of like Amazon drop-off hubs, especially in Europe. Also kind of reminds me of virtual restaurants, right, where someone might be technically, say, restaurant A on the storefront, but they're also cooking for a bunch of different brands that you can only find on DoorDash. So in a way, this might be, says, retailer X, but you're getting delivery from, a competing brand. You just don't know where it came from. So obviously a more efficient way to use urban real estate, avoids the hassle and expense of building out a new micro hub. So I think
Yeah.
interesting play. You guys get lots of cool little bike-powered delivery plays in the UK, so I'm optimistic for them. I know they don't always work out, RIP Zedify, but
No, I think Zedify's. I think that they are coming back.
are they back? This is a Halloween
So
episode, so like a zombie, are they back?
I think they are back.
Okay.
Need to go into that.
We'll check, folks. We'll check. Maybe they're back. Didn't mean anything by it. And then a couple other delivery-related stories that caught my eye. So very American on these, but Grubhub and Instacart partnering up. So Grubhub's belatedly gotten into the grocery delivery game, following behind DoorDash, Uber Eats, and of course Instacart, sort of the OG there. And so this is a way to basically have Instacart handle the fulfillment, but you can order it through the Grubhub app. And yeah, it kind of gives them a play at all that grocery volume without having to build out the grocery relationships themselves. So just interesting how these keep popping up, new permutations. You'd think that all the restaurants and grocery stores are locked up at this point, but they keep having new ones. So competition, it's good, I guess.
Yeah.
And then speaking of corporations, this one sad and happy. So the sad news, of course, because of the government shutdown here, SNAP, the food stamp program funding is about to run out, which is tragic, terrible, unnecessary, awful thing. But it is nice seeing some of the food delivery companies try and step in and be corporate partners. So DoorDash launching emergency food response, GoPuff doing so as well, basically delivering free groceries to needy people, waiving the fees, providing them free of charge in certain scenarios. And it's nice to see them step up for this because for a while, there was a kind of battle over food stamps a couple of months ago when the OBBA was being passed, and they didn't really come out with a statement of support, even though they've built big businesses off them. So nice to see them doing something. And I hope for the love of all that is good in the world that we can restore food stamp funding because it's just a tragedy to have people go hungry.
Yeah, of course. That's a nice or a sad story, but good response from the industry.
Yeah. So speaking of industry, let's tune in with Maria Angelica. And we're back. I'm joined by Maria Angelica, lead consultant in transport and mobility for Factual. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Jonah. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited about this one. It's a little bit different than our average guest. One, you're an amazing expert in all things urban mobility, but you're also here to talk about a new project that I think is really interesting, new UMX courses on corporate mobility. And so we're going to get into that in a second. But as usual, and I think it's fun to start with a background on our guest. So Maria, tell us about yourself.
Okay, I'm Maria. I'm a civil engineering. I have a master in transport engineering. I started my path in this mobility world as a researcher back in Bogota, in Colombia, my hometown. Then I worked a little bit in government with Enrique Peñalosa as an advisor in mobility. Later on, I moved to Mexico City, where I work in corporate mobility also. And then I did a little move to Amsterdam. There I work also in the government, in the municipality of Amsterdam. And now I'm in Barcelona already for a bit longer time as a transport consultant. I do love corporate mobility topic. Is one of my core topics. I'm passionate about sustainable mobility, and I'm always trying to work for better cities. That's what moves me, what my passion is. So this is me.
I would say talk about amazing cities to have kind of had across your career. That's a very cool list. I'm a little bit jealous over here. But yeah, I think sitting at the intersection between urban mobility and corporate mobility, right? The role that cities and companies can play to try and get their commuters to, get to work in a more sustainable manner. And so I think what we're talking about today is taking some of those best practices, some of that knowledge that you've gained across the career, and there's a new way to basically get that out to everyone else in the world. So what are we talking about today? What's the big announcement?
The big announcement is a course about corporate mobility. It's a course not just for companies, it's a course that is also for governments and for citizens that are interested in learn what you can do from a company to transform mobilities in a city, to make the cities more clean, happier, with better well-being, and just more livable.
Yeah. And so obviously we're going to put a link to listeners in the show notes. It's called the UMX is the Platform Urban Mobility explained, a bunch of really fascinating online courses, interactive video, not just boring point and click, but they're pretty fun. I've played with a few of them. And then, yeah, the new courses are on corporate mobility. And so I think that cues up to me an obvious question that I'm not going to be afraid to ask, but what exactly does corporate mobility mean in practice? How do you define it?
It's really easy. Corporate mobility is about the trips that we do every day from our homes to our work, the trips that we do in lunchtime from the company to have some lunch, and the business trips. So it's all the trips around companies because companies, depends where they are located, they attract trips in different means of transport from different distances. So it's all the trips generated by the companies.
Sure, sure. And that can be such a different shape depending on what city you're in, depending on what kind of company you're in. Obviously, the pandemic changed that a lot more people working from home, but then it's been a big push back to office. I'll admit that my commute to work is about 10 feet, but there's a lot more challenging commutes out there.
You're a
I
really
think
lucky one.
podcast listeners can't see my beautiful office that's also a baby room, but sometimes it would be nice to have a more formal workplace. But what are some of the current challenges that companies are facing? What are you seeing out there?
I have seen a bit of everything. Also depends a lot on the context of the specific city and the culture of the specific country. But the challenges are big. For companies right now, I think the focus is in decarbonizing their mobility and improving the well-being of employees. Longer commute in cars or longer commute in sedentary means of transport have a great impact in well-being and the health of our employees and in the long term in the productivity of the companies. We all know that happier and healthy employees produce more. So it's really in the core now of companies, it's really in their sustainability strategies now, like it's starting to take like an important role because it's also part of the carbon footprint of the companies. So they do want to transform it. They are, I think, starting to understand that transforming commuting is also improving business and contributing for a better society and better cities.
Sure. It's a virtuous flywheel, right? Where you make this one thing better, workers are more productive, shoppers are more likely to do business with you, everyone's happy, and things go up and to the right on a graph. So that's what we want to see. Are there particular approaches you've seen? You're based in Europe. Let's start there. Anything that's kind of making a difference?
Yeah, depends from the different point of view, but I think well-connected companies that are located close to high-quality public transport, cities that offer good infrastructure for cycling, then it's more easy for companies to promote sustainable mobility because they kind of have the infrastructure built around them. And this is totally different story for companies that are more away from city centers, maybe companies, factories, and this type of companies that needs by regulation to be a little bit farther from towns or cities. When they are so far, maybe they don't have access to high quality public transport.
Sure.
So then the only options employees have is to go in car. It's more difficult for them to go in a more sustainable means of transport. So it's really depending of the context of the company, the context of the city, and the culture, of course. I have seen really interesting solutions depending also on the type of company. So there are
Sure.
companies, for example, thinking in banks or thinking in supermarkets. So you know that there are in this type of businesses there are specific positions in the companies, imagine like the cashier of a supermarket, that
Sure.
they can be moved in the different points of supermarkets in the city, right? And it's not, it sounds obvious that supermarkets will place your working position the closest to your home.
I would hope so, but I don't
But
know. Yeah.
this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Same with the bank. So in the moment they optimize this workplace and home place, everything changed. It's really good for them. Like it's basically an optimization exercise that transform lives, transform cities. So this is a an approach for that specific type of company. Of course, that doesn't work for all the companies. No, there are other type of companies.
Instead of thinking of the workers as just, each one's replaceable, exact same, just kind of pegs on a board, you think, oh, these are people, they're commuting. If Maria lives in this neighborhood and there's a market, a walking distance, let's have her clock in there instead of commuting across town.
Exactly. It's just thinking in your employees and how you can make also their commute more sustainable.
Sure. And in a way, almost a return to kind of a classical model, right? Before these huge corporation chains, it would have been you're working for your local grocery store.
Yes, exactly. And then also in the course, you will see, if you got into the course, we have a best practice that is super interesting of a European company that they make a small analysis and they realize that their location of the headquarters cause a really, really long commute for 50% of the employees. So they get worried and they say, okay, we have to find a better solution because the commuting was too long for half of the people. Like, that's not acceptable. So they make a study and they relocate the company, also considering public transport and active mobility infrastructure. And this transformed the game completely. It reduced, I think, the travel time by 50%. That's a lot in average. So there are a lot of things companies can do. Other companies, maybe the companies that don't have a good public transport around, they can also do really interesting gamified carpooling solutions. But you have to make it interesting for the employees.
Sure, you gotta
Financially or
incentivize them. Yeah.
exactly, because it's also you are going to share your car with your colleagues for every day for long term. So it also has to be there has to be a win-win for the employee also. So yeah, you can see all kinds of different solutions. Shared mobility is also becoming a big trend in companies. So before they assign a car per employee in the biggest executives, and now they just put a pool of electric or like eco cars, sustainable, to share just when you need it. So you reduce also the amount of cars you are using for your own operation. So this is also interesting. So you see all kinds of different solutions depending of the company, depending of the city, depending on the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, the gamification is so important to kind of make it, valuable to behave this way. Sometimes it can be a little inconvenient to carpool, but there's ways to nudge them in the right direction. An obvious example you see a lot is you put the best parking spots are reserved for the carpoolers, right? So you walk right up to the front door as soon as you're out of the car. So that saves you a couple minutes that you might have already spent picking up your colleagues. Being based in America myself, when we look at Europe, we often think every slice of Europe, mobility paradise. But there's, of course, big differences between country and country, city and city. Are there particular locales you think are doing a great job of incentivizing green corporate mobility?
I think there are a couple of ones. I think, for example, Belgium, they have a law that make mandatory to all the companies with more than 500 employees to have a corporate mobility plan. So this law exists already for 20 years, and you have already seen a big impact because then companies kind of commit to also do something themselves to transform the way their employees commute every day to work. The results now, you can see it because already 20 years have happened from this policy. And they're also really creative. I think also you will see it in the course, but there was like a big challenge in Belgium uh, to promote not using your car for 30 days. It was a challenge. So they make it really fun, they give points, and people commit not to use the car to go to work for 30 days. And it was really interesting, the results, because you can also see like, okay, 30 days is a lot. So maybe at the beginning, yeah, people, they try for the first time other means of transport, but a lot of them discover how nice is to walk to work, how nice is to go in cycling to work, how nice is to take the bus and read a book, because this is time you get back for yourself. So you also have to get really creative because changing behavior is not something easy. It's actually a really difficult task. So you have to be really creative, do challenge, make it super fun also for the employees. So they
Yeah.
really engage with their solutions.
Humans are we're creatures of habit, right? So getting us out of our
Yeah,
comfort zone,
totally.
that's a challenge. But no, the 30 days is a nice, it seems doable, and then you start doing it and you say, oh, this is actually kind of nice. And then all of a sudden, a new habit is formed by the end of a month. So that's cool. What about, there's so many interlocking parts in any of these questions, right? You got sort of the public policy side, the infrastructure side, the company initiative side. How do those, how does one talk to the other? How does a company influence the policy? How does the policy influence a company? What's that nexus look like?
I think I see it as a kind of a triangle of three main pillars. So we have the city. The city has a really important role that is connecting good workplaces with residential areas, with efficient transport, with good infrastructure, like kind of they make the basis for a good mobility. Then you have the companies. I think companies don't understand the power they have in transforming mobility in cities. But
Mm-hmm.
if you think we all commute to work, so a big percentage of the trips that we do in cities daily are trips to work and coming back from work. So if we transform these trips, you can be talking about a transformation of 20% of the trips of the city to 50% depending of the city. So
Sure.
that's a lot. Like that's a big impact. So I think first companies need to understand that they really can change the city and the mobility, and they have a big influence because the moment a company start incentivizing a certain means of transport, for example, maybe it's not the case in Europe, but more in America and Latin America, the car has a big status and
Sure.
socially, right? So we have to break that status. But if you see your CEO going in the car, in a really fancy car every day to work, you kind of want to follow him. He's the person that leads.
He's the
You want to be
boss.
like
Yeah, yeah. He
him.
makes the
He's the
big
boss or
bucks.
she's the boss. So you want to follow. But what happens if that person comes in a really cool bike every day, or it comes walking every day? Game
He or she
changer.
has got really fancy shoes on. You think, oh, look at those
Yeah,
walking shoes.
yeah, exactly. Like the nicest sneakers to walk to work, of these kinds of things. So this is also a game changer. So there is a lot of things companies can do, from communication, marketing, infrastructure implementation. Things as basic as having a shower and a locker room and a place to change your clothes,
Yeah.
a good cycle parking that nobody's going to steal your bicycle, other things they can do in parking. For me, the parking is one of the most important areas that a company has to play around. They can implement preferential parking for carpoolers. They can implement a special parking for electric vehicles. They can implement like the nicest spot for micromobility. They
Yeah.
can do share mobility. Like they can really do like mobility, corporate
Lots of
mobility system
incentives. Yeah.
inside. So they can do a lot. But of course, the third pillar is the user, the employee. In this case, that we're talking about corporate mobility, because at the end it's us, the citizens, the workers, that we have to make the decision to actually let's give it a try to sustainable mobility. Let's try this, let's do it, because it is difficult when you work in companies that maybe the staff is have some years. They're not really open to change at the beginning,
Sure.
but the moment they do, they are the best ambassadors in the company, because they are the ones telling the nice story. Oh, I feel so good in the bicycle, or I feel so good in the public transport. Now I save time. So it's the three. I think the cities, the companies, and the user have such an important role in transforming corporate mobility.
Maria, you've had a lot of, I think, amazing ideas about how to make it nicer to carpool or to do shared mobility, or take a green vehicle. What if we just make it worse for people in single occupancy cars? Just make the parking garage really scary. Put it far away. Don't light it. Broken glass on the ground.
No, that's totally part of the game. Like every,
Enough
yeah,
carrot. I want
that's
more
true.
sticks.
Yeah. There is a lot. It has to be both, because if you only promote, it has been proven in literature that only promotion alone is
Not
not as
enough.
effective. And if you combine, no, if you put a little bit of, if you increase a bit the parking
The
price,
burden.
but you also give a lot of alternatives, then you're going to have a better outcome for sure. If you do cash out, if you ask people to quit of the company cars, but you give them as a compensation something different, then it is more attractive to do the change. And of course, sticks are also important. Nobody like it, and also I think in the corporate world they are not really good seen. But the companies that have made the step to implement sticks, they have been the most successful, for sure.
Yeah. And so, from a corporation's standpoint, I can imagine this fits into a larger set of goals around sustainability, around ESG, around being a good corporate citizen. So, how do they view this in terms of like the broad picture?
I think they always view it really positive because this immediately cuts CO2 and this immediately improves well-being. Like
Yeah.
active commuting, and this improves well-being. So in generally I think is but it's quite new. I think this is not the most popular of the measures, so it's I think it's getting there, but in general I think there are all kinds of reasons to do this under your sustainability strategy in a corporate.
Makes sense to me. Last question, Maria. So, thinking big picture, I want you to just dream big here. Where do you see urban mobility and corporate mobility headed in the next 5, 10 years? Where's the future headed?
Well, what I imagine in my dream hat is that governments, companies, and citizens work together for a better city. I imagine cities that are more lively. I imagine cities that are with better air, because everyone commute in a more sustainable way, because we have also cut a little bit of unnecessary trips because we don't need to travel all the time to work. So I imagine a future where well-being is at the center of the corporates and where people is just happier and cities are just cleaner and better.
Who wouldn't want that? Sounds like a great future to work towards. Maria, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing this with us. Listeners, urbanmobilitycourses.eu. That's how you can check out the UMX yourself. We'll obviously put a link in the show notes. But yeah, let's all work together towards a more sustainable urban corporate future. Thanks, Maria.
Thanks so much.